go.
Give it a
Go,
few minutes.
go,
Give it a few
go, go.
minutes.
Your head's a little bit cut off.
That's okay.
There you go. You don't want your head cut off. Are we live?
It says we are.
We
We
live.
give it a couple minutes.
We're going to give you guys a few minutes to realize that we live. We live, babe.
Yep.
We
We
is
are
live. We are. We are
getting
live.
everything set up. And guess what, y'all? It was it, and we got 4 minutes.
We
Or
early
4
today.
minutes. We early. We got all the things set up.
Yes.
So we are on time for a
Yes.
change.
Yes.
We're not struggling. No pun intended. We actually got everything done. Let's see here. Let me do this. I'm trying to see. We got one thing popping up here on the screen that I'm trying to end. Okay.
Okay.
So that is done.
So now we can see you guys when you come in.
Yes,
come on
yes,
in.
yes.
Come on
Yes,
in.
yes,
Hey,
yes.
everybody.
Because we're going to have some
Hey.
fun. Man, she smelled good. I was like catching.
I smell like ice cream.
No, it's not the ice cream. Okay.
Like it?
Yeah. It was like, you ever caught a whiff of your significant other and you're like, hey, and you come back in.
Is?
I don't care. I don't want to know. But it's good.
I'm glad you like it.
It's nice. It's
Thank
nice.
you.
It's
Thank
nice.
You. Thank you.
Well, welcome to the live session with y'all tonight. The hot live session with Rich Relationship Refuge, Gil and Renee, and we welcome you guys in. We were given a couple minutes. We just gonna jump in because if you on time and you ain't here just to see us just act silly on the camera. You here to actually work on your relationship. So that's what we are actually all about. And that's what we're talking about tonight. We are going to talk. What we going to talk about tonight? You tell me.
Tonight's topic. I'm so excited. I'm always excited, but I love you guys. And I'm so happy to be with you guys tonight. Tonight's episode is about struggle love.
Struggle love. Struggle love.
Yes.
And you probably said that because when Renee kind of told me about it, I shared with you guys last week about how she comes up with the titles and things like that. She's the creative one that comes up with the titles. But then we start talking about the topics and the subjects. And a lot of it is based on things that we see throughout the week, from responses to previous videos or even some comments or anything that we see.
And what's going on in the world.
And what's going on in the world. And
in the Word, both of them. The world and the Word.
So go ahead and share with them about that.
Well, a part of it is we spoke last week about building a lifetime of love.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching because I watch other creators' content. I was watching someone's content and they were talking about struggle love. I was watching another creator's video and she was single and she was talking about struggle love. And so I said, we always try to be positive. We always try to show you what to do. And we try to, give you the positive part of it. But there is a flip side to relationships. And it is the negative struggle love that a lot of people are struggling with or finding themselves in. So we felt that it would be a disservice to you if we didn't share with you what struggle love is.
I'm sorry, I didn't do anything. Cancel. We still here. We still here.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I clicked on something. I see on the screen pop up. My wife.
Don't do that, baby.
My wife loves to have a whole lot of windows open, y'all.
Yes.
So I'm sorry to sidebar. You guys know I'm in IT, and when I see like 50 bajillion bars up at the top, it's like some of these windows gotta close because it's gonna slow down the feeds and stuff like that. But I'm sorry. Sorry. I just had a squirrel moment.
Okay, so we are talking about
struggle love.
And
you were talking about.
And basically, I was listening to one of a creator's video. She is single, and she was talking about how so many people talk about struggle love. I was watching another creator's video. She was talking about how we get this idea from Disney that it's the woman has to be the one to sacrifice and to pursue, and that we always say marriage is hard, but understanding that marriage is work, but when we say it's work, it shouldn't be a struggle. And so I kind of made a video and it talked about, do you know what struggle love is? So in the chat, could you guys, if you guys know what struggle love is or what your definition is, because I want Gil to share the technical definition of what struggle love is.
Y'all see how she threw me the technical stuff.
Gil is technical. good one. So
it's not
share
necessarily the
what's the
technical side,
definition of
but when
struggle
we
love?
talk about struggle love, we're talking about it. If you find yourself in your struggle love relationships are characterized by a couple things. If you're in constant conflict, if you have hardship and you are suffering, and it's also always kind of sort of mistaken, but we're just passionate. When you say those kind of things, passion doesn't come from struggle, it doesn't come from conflict, it doesn't come from hardship, it doesn't come from those negative connotations of relationships that you may see where people are always at each other like this. That is not real. If it always seems like it's that underlying tension that is there,
that's not passion, that's anger.
yeah, and that is a struggle. And we're going to share with you some of the indicators of what it's like if you're in a struggle relationship, a struggle love type of relationship, some of the things to look out for, some of the things that will be a beacon, and it will be something that you can see that make you go,
Am I in struggle love?
yeah. And when you think about those things, you want to be on guard for
In the
being
beginning.
from the very beginning in those relationships, because you don't want to ignore the indicators that you may see. If you're seeing some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight, that may be one that you don't necessarily got to, end the relationship and sever it and cut it off, but it is something to bring some attention to and to talk about and to communicate with, because sometimes may not even be aware that it's a struggle or that you're in a struggle.
And I'm going to give an example of, because we started dating when we were 18, but I did date other people, not very long, but I did date. And I remember dating this guy in high school, and we were in the hallway, and he decided, now I didn't grow up in church. I didn't grow up being saved. I didn't have a relationship with God. I got saved as an adult. I remember him deciding that he wanted to kiss me in the hallway. And he was bigger than me. He was a big guy as a football player. He wanted to kiss me in the hallway. I was like, oh, I don't do that. Mm-hmm. And I pushed away, and he grabbed my arm. I was like,
he got physical.
Let me go.
Okay.
I was like, let me go. And I never forget that feeling of feeling dominated over, controlled. Mm-hmm. I felt, I didn't feel safe.
Right.
And ever since then, whenever I was around guys and they made me get that same feeling, that to me was a turnoff.
Right.
That is not passion. That is not love. That is a manipulation. It's dominance, and it's unhealthy. And so I just want you to be aware that I'm sure that you've had that feeling before. That's not passion. That's not, I made a video.
Just call it what it is. It's actually one of the signs that you may be in a struggle relationship. That is called physical or emotional abuse.
Yes.
Even though he didn't physically accost you or get conflict, like punching or anything like that, it was still a physical act.
It was physical abuse because he put his hands on me and I didn't ask him to.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so I think that we another part of things to be aware of is feeling like you can't tell anybody. Mm-hmm. Feeling like you don't want anybody to know. These are all signs and symptoms of being in an unhealthy relationship with the opposite sex.
Right.
And I think what we're going to do next week is, because you can have struggle love with friends, you can have struggle love with churches, you can have struggle love with jobs. And so I think this week we'll just talk about
in the context of
struggle love in the aspect of a relationship with someone that you want to marry or be in a long-term relationship
and
with.
I want to talk about that first point that you made in reference to the physical and the emotional abuse. You guys have watched us, you have heard us say that is not something that you want to be involved with in any kind of relationship that is physically, and on the other side of that, emotionally abusive or verbally abusive. Those types of things is always the foundational, and the root of that is always control.
Mm-hmm.
Call it for exactly what it is. This person is trying to control you. Maybe it could be because of past history. It could be because of hurt and pain that they're experiencing in their own life. And when that happens, as their old saying goes, hurting people hurt other people.
Right.
That is one of those indicators that you may want to be attentive to, that if you are being physically or verbally
or emotionally,
and that's a strong one, because this is something, and you can talk to this, maybe on the side of a woman being more verbally abusive than they may be physically abusive.
Right.
And the guy may be more inclined to be physical than they are verbal, But though it goes both ways, and
Yeah.
both can be just as damaging and just as hurtful.
Yeah. And I want to explain something about my story. I want to pack a little bit of my story.
Sure.
One of the reasons why that was a turnoff for me was because I grew up seeing women in my family be physically accosted. I saw, and I remember seeing a woman she lived in our apartment, be beat by her husband. So those are things for me. I made up decisions as a little girl. I'm talking like 7, 6 years old. A man is not going to put his hands on me. And so those are just some of the boundaries that I set for myself. And I did not let go of that. I made a decision that I didn't want that. And so a part of it is being aware of it, but knowing why it bothered you. It wasn't because it was just natural for it to bother. It bothered me because I saw it happen to other people. So if you grew up in an environment where you saw your mom or your dad be physically or verbally abused, it should make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you should know that that's not okay. And so the reason why we're going to talk about this, because so many times we talk about what it should be and what you should be doing, but you need to understand what unhealthy looks like as well.
Right.
And so we want to make sure we talk about that, and we want to bring it out into the open.
And then the second one is as far as being emotionally under distress or under stress. When those things happen, those are definitely indicators. If you always find that being in this relationship with this person is you're always unhappy, or you're anxious, or you feel unnerved,
you can't sleep. You have to. There's a song that's out. I've been drinking more alcohol. If you're drinking more, all the things you're doing to self-medicate, that's an indicator that you're in a struggle love relationship, because love does not bring struggle. Love brings peace and joy and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. Is it work? Yes. But is it a struggle? No.
So we're going to talk about another one. The third one, this is the 5 signs that you might be in a struggle relationship. The third one is actually the first one that we wanted to talk about, is arguments. I'm not talking about arguments that are just disagreements that are quick and they just pass or anything like that. If you are constantly in intense,
high volumes, words that are hurtful,
constantly frequent, and
very physical, even not if you're not being touched, but someone getting in your face
and getting loud,
pushing. One of the things I would always tell women when I was a hairstylist was, if he pushes you when you're his girlfriend, he will beat you when you're his wife. Because what we allow as a girlfriend sets the stage for what can be accepted as a wife. And so these are all things that you really need to be aware of. That feeling of, don't ignore that.
Anxious. You should not feel anxious especially when you're around this person that you love and that you care about. You should always have that good, warm feeling when you're around them. If that's something that intense, and especially when it's, and I use that word specifically, intense arguments, intense. That is something that is a definite indicator. But on the other side of that, it doesn't have to be loud. But guess what? If it's the silent treatment, that is something that I would probably say is another indicator that could be just as bad, when, especially if a person has tried to make amends or tried to resolve it, and you're just, you don't want to talk, no matter what they say, no matter what they do, even if it's over. Let's just say you resolve the conflict, and you still are doing the silent treatment, or they are doing the silent treatment. That is an indicator that you are in a struggle love relationship, and that is something that you have to be mindful about.
And I love that you're bringing up this from a male, because I think so many times when we think of this, we don't, we see what a woman has to say about it, or we see what a man has to say about it. But we're a couple, and we have been together since we were 18. Gil has never pushed me, hit me, slapped me, cussed me, put his hands on me any other way than affectionate. And I know for some people that's hard to believe, but it's a matter of the person's character. That guy that made me feel uncomfortable when I was with him, guess what I did with him? I broke up with him. I was like, no, this is not okay. And so when me and Gil started dating, I felt one of the things I can say about him after having been in a relationship, and it wasn't a long relationship, but after having that experience, I knew the difference between safe and unsafe. And Gil made me feel safe.
Right. And so those are, we're just sharing with you some of the things that it's indicators. No, we got one more. I'm just kind of recapping because people pop in and pop out. We're talking about struggle love and what you signs that you may be in a struggle like love relationship. We already gave you 5 signs. We talked about 4. We already talked about emotionally abusive and verbally abusive, physically. We talked about intense arguments. We talked about being under distress, and this is one that we want to share with you. Sometimes this one happens when you least expect it, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're in a struggle love. Sometimes it's just developing in the relationship when there's a lack of trust. When you have a lack of trust in your relationship, it while it can be a sign of struggle love, if it's one of those things that is constant, like we just said, it's perpetuating constantly ongoing arguments about trust. You see a lot of the little shorts and a lot of snippets about who you talking to and where you at. And Renee even did like a little funny parody today, kind of leading into this one about talking about on the phone as far as sharing some of the things about trust in the little parody of the little skit.
And you may not have realized that the reason why I showed that was because sometimes women think, oh girl, he want to know where I'm at, where I'm, who I'm with, what I'm doing, where I've been. Those are all indicators of their being, because sometimes when people can't trust you, it's because they don't trust themselves. And in the beginning of a relationship, you shouldn't be questioned about your every moment, your every where you are, who you with, what you're doing. Not to the level where you feel like you're being micromanaged or you're being controlled.
And I would even say this one, we had this happen early in our relationship that we were in the dating phase. And I went to help a friend who had bought a business, and I went to help them. And Renee kind of talked about this on early about the relationship where I didn't show up when I said I was going to show up, or I think I showed up, but I was just late.
Well, you didn't.
No, I didn't. You didn't answer. I didn't answer when you called. Mm-hmm. So when that happened, guess what she instantly did? This is what I'm talking about. That trust. That was like, okay, is this an indicator? Is this something that is a problem? Well, I would say no, because we were in a good relationship and I had not built up a history and a habit of not doing what I said I was going to do. I can understand if it's been cheating, infidelity, those types of things are natural to having. You have to rebuild that trust. When those types of things happen, that's a normal response, and a normal response in the relationship of a lack of trust there, because it has to be rebuilt. But if you're just dating, just starting out, or early in your relationship, or the person that you're with has not built a history of that type of behavior, and you have a lack of trust, that kind of may be an indicator that you may have to do some internal looking and examining, saying, well, why am I not trusting this person? What did they do, or did they do something to make me not trust them, or is it me?
And one of the things that's important to understand, so did we do all 5? Yeah. Okay. One of the things that's important to understand, the reason why we want to bring all this stuff out is because there's reasons why people end up in struggle love. Mm-hmm. A lot of time it's the pain of your past. It's
talk about the pain of your past, though. Expound on that, because just to make sure that the people who are watching exactly understand what we're talking about when we talk about the pain of your past.
Yeah. Well, like for me, I talked about the reason why that sent off a red flag for me when he grabbed me was because I saw other women get physically abused. So now they call them triggers. It's a trigger. Oh, okay. Well, if I had never seen that, I would have not known that that was unhealthy. I would have thought but it was the way it made me feel. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes the way things make you feel may just be because it's something wrong, and it could be because of something that happened to you in the past. Right. And so we need to understand that we're going to see things through our experiences. We're going to see things through whatever. For us, it's the Bible. We're going to see things through the relationships we saw model. And so all of those things make you the person that you are. And so you have to make sure that when things happen, like with the situation with Gil, with him not answering the phone, I automatically went back to, I was used to people not keeping their word. Mm-hmm. So automatically, I then held Gil to a standard based on everybody else that had disappointed me. That was wrong. That was something because it wasn't like he gave me a reason to go from 0 to 100. Right. So struggle love is if that was happening every week, If that was happening all the time, then that's struggle love. But we're not saying you're not gonna have disagreements. We're not saying that you don't have to build trust. We're saying that if the trust is constantly being broke, if the emotions are constantly, if you're constantly being berated, if someone is putting their hands on you, period, other than
Either
affectionately,
way, yeah.
unless you give permission, even with giving permission, physical touch has to be agreed by both people.
Right.
And so if these things are happening to you, you be aware that it's not just that the person is passionate. It's not just that he just loves you so much or she just loves you so much she don't want you out of her sight. Because if you really love and trust someone, you don't have to just be with them to trust them.
Right.
And so we just want to let you know this is a sign that you might be in struggle love. And struggle love, honestly, it's really just control.
Right.
It's manipulation. And sometimes we get so comfortable with letting people treat us poorly that we begin to attract struggle love.
Mm-hmm.
So the healthiest way, to begin to unpack some of this and to get rid of the pain of your past, because when you grow up in an environment where you're constantly being, because I grew up in an environment where my mother was verbally abusive, she always had negative things to say. The people around me were it was unhealthy. So for me, learning the difference between what is healthy and what is unhealthy, it took me a long time. Because one of the things for me, because I grew up in an environment like that, when me and Gil first got together, oh, this can't be real. He can't really be like that. Men are not loyal. Men are not good. I had to undo all that in my head because it's what I was taught, but it's also what I saw, and it's also what people were telling me. So there's a fine line between you being on heightened alert and being aware of what struggle love is, and you also not allowing what happened to you in the past to keep repeating itself.
Right. And so what we've been sharing with you on this episode of the live session that we're having this night, it starts out a little heavy, y'all, but it's going to get better. It's going to get a little bit lighter.
I'd rather be heavy and honest.
Heavy in the beginning, but we're talking about struggle love. We just gave you 5 signs that if you're in a struggle type love relationship, some of the things that may be indicators that you can see naturally in your relationship that may be something that you may want to take a little bit more attention to, or pay a little bit more attention to as it relates to the relationship. So, but why are we bringing this up? Why are we talking about this? Because when you're in it, it is actually doing damage to yourself.
It is.
When you're in these unhealthy or struggle type of relationships, look at it from just a you perspective. Take it from that perspective, not just like this, but just look at it as from your perspective as an individual of how is it affecting you and what is it actually doing to you. And so we're going to share with you some of the things as far as when it comes to as far as the relationship of struggle love, about what is it doing to you. This actually sets up an unhealthy dynamic in yourself. When you start looking at it from that perspective, you start looking for things. Let's just say you built a habit of being in a struggle love relationship and never doing anything different in the relationship. That's a dynamic that you're going to have, and it's going to be the benchmark or the baseline or the thing that you are going to constantly look for in the relationship.
So instead of looking for positive things, you're looking for negative, and you expect for it to be. So when things are peaceful and calm, and you're not arguing, because me and Gil dated for 3 years before we got married. I can count the amount of times that we had arguments. We don't always agree, but as far as heated, high volume, that is not a healthy environment to be in.
Right. So that's one of the dynamics. It's going to stifle your growth. You are in a relationship with this person. You should be constantly growing together. You should be constantly challenging each other to get better at the relationship individually, but also better in the relationship collectively, as far as me making Renee better, Renee making me better, by not necessarily breaking me down and being in some of the things that we talked about in the struggle, but helping me be the best part of me that I can actually be.
And especially for me, what was important to me, because my love language is words of affirmation. One of the things I can say that Gil really helped me with was he was constantly encouraging me. He was constantly saying positive things to me. And it took me a long time to be able to hear it and accept it as the truth, because I had to begin to see value in myself. I had to begin to realize that, you know what, he's right. That's true.
Right. So we talking about that. The other one is it actually erodes trust in the relationship, but it's actually can be the opposite of that. You are going to actually start building a better trust mechanism inside of yourself. When you think about, I don't trust this person because of their behavior. Well, that's going to make you examine, just like we shared with you at the very beginning. What is it that make me not trust this person? Is it that their behavior, or is it like Renee brought up? Is it my past experiences? If it's something that's an indicator of your past experience, that is something that you have to look at and say, okay, it's not the person, it's me. I have to start building up a better trust system for this person based on the actual actions that this person is giving me or displaying in this relationship versus a set of preset defaults that I actually automatically fall back to.
That all men are dogs and all women are, not loyal. Anytime you have a broad brush that you paint with, that can be a part of the effects of you being in unhealthy relationships.
Right, absolutely. Another effect that it actually has on you as an individual, it is emotionally draining. We are always challenged in our everyday life already. So this should be a safe haven. This should be a safe place for, just like Renee mentioned, a safe place. Your significant other or your spouse should be a safe place for you to go to be recharged emotionally.
Where you can be vulnerable, where you can share your dreams and your hopes and your fears and what you want, what you need, what you expect. That is what you should be able to do in it.
So even when you think about those things and how it actually impacts you, we want to share with you from a biblical perspective because we are believers and followers of Christ. That's just what we do. We know people who watch us may not fall to that same faith base, but that's okay. The stuff is still
this is going to work regardless to your faith, because changing your mindset and changing how you interact in relationships is a human condition.
It is. And so one of the things that I actually looked up was one of a scripture for my believer faith follower brothers and sisters out there, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. They call it the love chapter. A lot of people know about it, but I looked it up in a different version today when we were talking about, and I looked at it from the perspective of, break it down for me. Don't use the thises and thous and those and thises and all those things.
You mean you're not going to read the King James?
No, I'm not going to read the King James. I'm going to actually just read these things that I'm going to look at it in a different light. I want you to look at these as things to look for when it comes to what it actually looks like in our modern day and time of, okay, if I am in a struggle relationship, how do I know what to look for? These are the kind of behaviors that you can actually think about from 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And this is out of what's called the Message Bible. If you don't know what the Message Bible is, the Message Bible actually translated into modern current language that we actually speak. And so this one, it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, this is verses 4-7. I love this because it says, this is what love actually looks like. Love never gives up. Think about this in light of your relationship. Love cares more for others than it does for itself. Love doesn't want what it doesn't have. Love doesn't strut. It does not have a swelled head.
In other words, it
doesn't have a big head. No. It doesn't forces itself on others. It isn't always me first. It doesn't fly off the handle. It doesn't keep score of the sins done to me
or the mistakes you've made.
It doesn't revel when others need to grovel. It doesn't take pleasure in other people's downfall, but it should be flowered with truth. It puts up with anything. Trust God's always looks for the best. It never looks back, but it keeps on going to the end.
Now, some of you, if you're in a struggle, love, you heard the part where it says puts up with everything, but it's talking about putting up with everything before that. It's not saying put up with abuse. It's not saying put up with being physically touched or hurt. That's not what it's saying. It's saying it puts up with all the things that were before that. So struggle love sets us up for being in relationships that don't grow, they don't flourish, they don't produce fruit. They normally end in heartbreak, disappointment. They end in turmoil. Sometimes they end in people losing their life. So this is why it was important for us to bring this up and talk about it, because so many times we don't know. It's like, well, am I in a struggle of relationship? Because I
Mm.
keep hearing people talk about relationships being hard, but there's a difference between relationships being hard and a relationship being unhealthy. And a relationship being hard, it's going to make you better. It's going to encourage you. You're going to grow. You're going to flourish. You're going to become better. And so it's just important. We want to show you all this so you can kind of have an understanding of, well, man, am I in struggle of?
Right. And I want to make a point that you just said that was something, a visual came to my mind about marriage being hard or relationships being hard. Think of it in the setting of going to the gym. If you are working out, that is hard.
Yes.
That is hard work. I mean,
Mhm.
regardless whether you're on a treadmill or lifting weights or swimming or playing some type of physical activity that is putting stress on you,
Mhm.
that's hard. When they say go to the gym and work out, you're working hard. But what is it producing? It is
Yes.
making you stronger. It's getting you more healthy. It's giving you more flexibility. It's all the benefits of working hard. So that's hard work. That is what it's like in a marriage
Yeah.
relationship.
It builds a beautiful body.
You are working out. Think of it as working out, not working from a standpoint of some laborious, choreful thing that you have to do. It is something that as you work at it, getting better with yourself, getting better in the relationship, whether you're working on your communication, whether you're working on your conflict resolution. And those are the things that you want to be working at. When they say
Right.
it's hard work,
Yeah.
those are the things that we're talking about. The hard work is the things that are going to develop and make you better at being in relationships. So that's what I came to my mind
Yeah.
about
I love
working out
that.
in the gym.
Yeah. Because I think a part of it is that, it is hard, but the hardest part is the change.
Mhm.
The hardest part is the selflessness. And it's because in the beginning we're so used to only thinking about ourselves and what we want and what we think and how we see things. But when it's two people becoming one, it's just like when you're building a muscle, there's tears for that muscle to
Small, yeah.
grow. So when you're becoming one, there's some tears and some cuts, but it's to build something beautiful. And so if you're struggling and you're not seeing anything beautiful being developed, then you might be doing more damage to yourself than good.
Right, right. But what does it actually do as far as what can you do when you're in a struggle relationship? You come out of it, but then there are things that you can do after you have started recognizing, well, maybe I was in a struggle relationship in the past. I'm presently looking at a relationship that I may be in right now. There are some things that you can do as far as looking for, or even prior to, or even start establishing right now in your relationship. And that's what we're going to share with you right now. One of the things that you can actually do, because relationships are hard, but we already talked about that as far as what
It's
we
like a
talk about being
workout.
hard.
It's not like somebody cutting you up with a razor.
Right.
It's not the same.
But this is something that you can actually do. Establish boundaries.
And the thing that I love
This is
about
one.
this is, like I said, I had made a decision that I was not going to accept. A boundary is an inward swinging door. This is yeses and nos for yourself.
Right.
No, I will not do that. No, I'm not okay with that. And those are your boundaries. Boundaries are not something you keep other people out. Boundaries keep you back and it keeps you safe because your boundaries are yours.
I heard it. Instead of thinking of it as we call it boundaries, we old school, y'all. New school calls it my deal breakers. What are your deal breakers?
No, those are standards.
Well, it's like a boundary. That's what I'm looking at now. I'm just trying to make it.
No, they call them boundaries because now they use a lot more technical terms. They call them boundaries.
Okay.
Boundaries.
So seek support from friends and people who are doing it like you want to be doing it.
And let me tell you why this is important. One of the things that people do in struggle of relationships, it's autonomy. They isolate you from your friends, your family, your faith. Anybody that can speak life into your life, they want all those relationships to be silenced because they want to get you to themselves so they can begin to indoctrinate you and fill your heart and your head with what they believe about you, what they say about you. So the reason why you should always have other people in your life is because they're going to see the person you're with from a different perspective. If the person you're with is someone you have to hide from the people you love, then that might be a relationship that you might not want to be in.
Or you start thinking about that you ever have these conversations before you get with them, and you talk to your friends and you say, okay, y'all don't trip, don't get mad, don't, you have to preface it. It's almost like you have to try to smooth things over before this person comes around or you guys are all together, because you know that there's going to be a conflict that's going to come up sooner or later, because maybe it's your friend or somebody in your family doesn't like this person, and some of it could be personality driven, but some of it could be real.
They see things you don't see.
They could be real indicators that you may want to listen to, or at least heed and think about, are they just being tripping, or are they actually trying to protect and help me when it comes to my relationships? The reason why you want to start looking at these things that we're sharing with you right now is because the next one is talking about your own well-being. Yeah. You have to have peace in the relationships that you're in, whether it's your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, co-workers, extended family, extended friends, even when you're just out shopping and about. That well-being, that peace that you're going to actually carry is going to permeate your whole life. It's going to translate into other areas of your relationship. Oh, absolutely. So you have to take your own well-being and you have to make it a priority, not to the point where you put yourself first in every position, but you have to think about my well-being in a relationship and how is it going to impact the other areas of my life. Put yourself in that first place.
Yeah. Because it's God, then you, and then everybody else. Anybody who wants to be first wants to be in a position that only God should be in. So in everyone's heart, you have a first place. The person in first place is either going to be God or you are a person. Whoever's in that first place is going to govern and dictate how you live your life. So I don't trust me in the first place, because I know me, I am selfish, I'm self-centered, I'm self-focused, have a lot of flaws. So I want Christ to be in that first place. Mm-hmm. So you have to decide who's in that first place in your heart, because whoever's in that place is going to lead you, it's going to guide you, they're going to govern you. So think about that when you're making the decision about who's in first place in your heart.
Yep. And then the last one we're going to share with you, as far as it's going to be about communication. We always talk about it in every aspect. It is probably one of the bedrocks and the foundations of every relationship that you're going to actually be in. If you are not a talker or you haven't learned to communicate effectively, I'm not just talking about saying what you think and saying what comes to mind and giving the people a piece of your mind. When I say communicate effectively, means you have a message that you translated it to that other person, that they heard it, they understood it, and they giving you feedback on what you're saying. That's an exchange. That's how communication works. Right. But you also have on that other end of that spectrum is the listening. Right. You have to be willing to listen to what's being said around you, not necessarily about you, but around you as it relates to your relationships, and how does this impact you? If you have advisors in your life or people who are in your life that have your back, you know who your real people are that has your back and they want the best for you. You have to be willing to communicate to them and actually get their input, get some of those things of what they may see or what they may be trying to say to you about this person, and heed it and listen to it.
Mm-hmm. Because a part of it is that God puts us in a family for a reason. God puts us in relationships for a reason. And so we need to make sure that we have people who are speaking life into our life. And sometimes speaking life is telling you no. Sometimes speaking life is telling you you might not want to do that. And so it's important that we understand what unhealthy and healthy look like, so that you can kind of know where you are. Because we would hate to see you spend, because one of the things that the young lady was saying, people talk about they're in marriages for 8 years and they struggle for 8 years. 8 years is a long time to wait on somebody to get it together. And marriage is too important to spend it being miserable. We don't believe in coexisting and you're just going to endure and you're miserable. That is not the life that God has called us to. God has called us to have life and to have it more abundantly. And it's not abundant when you're miserable. When we're creating shorts and we're creating content, this is out of the abundance of our life. We're not making this up. We're not just entertaining you. We truly, genuinely, wholeheartedly love God and each other. And I think it is important that if you know how we do that, because for me, I saw my grandparents, but they never.
How did they do it?
How did they do it?
How did they be together over how long?
They were married for over 50 years.
Over 50 years.
Yeah, almost 60 years.
Wouldn't you want to know some of that information?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're doing. We're just sharing with you the 35. It'll be 35 years in December. The information that we have thought about and shared with each other, and that we just thought was just the norm. We're just sharing it with you guys now.
Because it's important that you understand that struggle love is not healthy. It's not love. It's really just lust and control. And why settle for struggle love when you can have the love to God that Gil described and he gave the definition of? And again, they're in the show notes. We have the Bible verses for you to read, because it really helps you to have something you can go to and read and meditate on and remind yourself of, you are worthy of being loved in a way that is fulfilling and enjoyable and something you want to share. You should want to share the person you love and the love you share with other people. There's so many ways you should be mindful of, is this really love
or is this
really struggle? And so if you have to hide it, if you have to keep it under wraps, if you can't tell nobody, love is something you want to shout it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
And so we hope that this episode on struggle love has been helpful, eye-opening, sobering, and most of all, it'll be beneficial.
So we love you guys. We thank you guys for hanging out with us. Thank you for the comments. And if you have any information or you want to reach out to us, you can always reach us through the website, richrelationshipsrefuge.com.
Yes.
You can also hit us on the YouTube channel. Renee reads all of the comments, and I read them too.
Yes.
She reads all of the comments. She's up.
I love y'all.
She's up all the time.
I love
She's
y'all.
just like, oh, and I hear her going, oh, she has a conversation with y'all. I'm telling you.
I just want to say, Rich Relationship Refuge, you are filling spaces in my heart from childhood. It is such a blessing to hear the things you guys say, the positive feedback, the correction, and even the people who are critical.
That's okay.
You're making us better.
Yes.
So thank you for stopping and taking the time to leave a comment. Please, if you are a subscriber, could y'all please come on your notification bell? Because guess what? YouTube tells me everything. Yo, put your notifications on so when we come on, you'll know, so we can be together.
And hang out. We appreciate you guys. We thank you for everybody who subscribed. We thank you. We don't take it lightly. We love you guys. Reach out to us. We will respond. We are real people. We are a staff of 2. Yes. This is it. This is Rich Relationship Refuge right here. This is it. And we got y'all in the community. So
we love you. And we love serving you all.
So remember, guys, we are stronger together.
And you are more than enough. And we will see you next Thursday. We're going to talk about struggle love with friends. Okay? Yeah. That's what we're going to do next week.
See you guys.
Love you guys. Bye.